hit the road. My heartbeat is drumming, but my head's in the zone. Now hearts may be broken, and tears they may fall, but after decades of hoping, it's nice to be here at all. They didn't see us coming, but we can make it alone. Let's just believe until we have to go home.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Euro Breakfast, episode 7, I think it says at this point. And I am delighted to be joined today by, firstly, on my immediate right, a man who we're kind of billed as an Italian football man, but you might know him better for his FM side of things. Mr. Si Maggio, welcome in. How you doing, my friend?
How's it going? I've moved. A second ago I was at the bottom where Rich is. Now he's reappeared as well on mine. I'm good.
I think Richie's having a few camera issues. We'll just make sure can you still hear us there, Rich? Maybe not.
It was all fine until 2 seconds ago.
Yeah, I think he's maybe just having a wee internet issue or two, but we do have Rich with us from Escape to Suomi as well. I probably horrendously mispronounced. But I'll wait and see if he's able to kind of jump back in with us or not. I think he might be gone.
It was working
we'll
so
give him
well.
a second.
It was working so well.
It was literally perfect until we hit go live. But right, we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see what happens with Rich. If I take him off the stream now and we can throw him back in, hopefully. Let me make sure we've got the...
Do you want to build me as a Finland expert as well now? Let me just open a little guide. I got my little guidebook here. Let me just read up. I'll swat up. Where are they? They're in here somewhere.
So Si might be covering a wee bit more than we thought this morning, after all. Neil, firstly, welcome in. Thank you very much, mate. Hopefully this is... There he is. How you doing, Rich?
Hi, Mozza. Sorry about that. The old gremlins. I think the Russians are trying to interfere with me already.
Yeah, you might need to correct my pronunciation here because I tried to say escape to... Is it Suomi?
Suomi, yeah, very good.
We'll go with that. So we have Rich here to cover Finland in a bit more depth because I'm making a conscious effort for the nations that aren't given that coverage that we properly get down and kind of into the detail and find a bit more about them as well. So we'll have North Macedonia covered in weeks to come. We'll also have Ukraine covered as well as we go. So there's a few... I'm billing you as an expert here, so no pressure, Rich.
I've watched every Finland game for the last 10 years, but even I'm still learning most of it. So, yeah, we'll see how
It's pretty good
on.
going. I didn't know where you could watch Finland games.
It's a struggle. Luckily, we have Finnish TV in our house, so it's okay. It's the only way I can learn the language.
It took for the third comment for somebody to try the Antiniemi joke there as well. Standard, absolutely standard.
Yeah, 4 minutes past 9.
But let's start off early on. I say early on because there was only 2 games yesterday. It was one of those days that we perhaps look forward to a bit less for the Euros, but we were spoiled with the 2 games. I felt like Hungary-Portugal was the first one up, and after the home side really acquitted themselves brilliantly, Portugal turned on the class in the last 10 minutes and got in the end, an easy win, but it didn't look that way a long way through it. Who wants to jump in first?
Yeah, go on. I'd build this as a 3-0. I've got all my score predictions up. And I'd build it as a 3-0 to Portugal, Ronaldo. Although it was a home game in Hungary, right? And they had a full stadium of 60,000 or something. Which I won't comment on whether that's appropriate or not right now. But yeah, they looked like they were holding Portugal pretty well with a back 4 and then pretty much a back 9 or 10. They were leaving 1 or 2 players up top. And then it just took... They even had that offside goal, which just about... It could have been a goal very easily if he'd have waited a second or more to make his run. And just Ronaldo... Actually, I think the subs were very useful. I don't know if Renato Sanchez, when he came on, he was bullying players off the ball, taking the ball well. a bit similar to what we might see Traore do in the Premier League. And he looked like he was dragging 4 or 5 players in, which gave Ronaldo and a couple other players space to make those runs off the ball.
Yeah, I think the full stadium one's a weird one, because I was sitting there conflicted about it. It was really nice to see it and have a proper atmosphere there, but at the same time, yeah, let's not delve too deep into the moral side of it. I do know that everyone had to be fully vaccinated to get in. That was something the commentator mentioned. But yeah, let's just say there's a reason no one else is doing full stadiums in this tournament. But what did you make of the game, Rich?
I thought it was decent. I thought Hungary, albeit everyone's been billing them as the weakest team in the group, I think having that home advantage has made things a little bit more competitive for them. They had a few good chances. I think ultimately, as I said, the subs they made towards the end, they did make the difference. I think they managed to sort of put that squeeze on them in the last 10 minutes, and Ronaldo really showed, how much of a great he is, even though he's not the same player he was 5 or 6 years ago. He's still Cristiano Ronaldo and can still do things like that. I was glad I think it was about 4 minutes in before we had his first little tantrum, because I think it was Diego Jota didn't pass to him. But I mean, it was I think it was just a resilient thing. The second goal in particular of his was just fantastic, and it was nice to see that moment of quality, because it would have been an okay 0-0, but I'd say maybe 3-0 flattered Portugal somewhat. But it was nice to see him turn it on at the end.
Yeah, it was almost like as soon as he got that penalty, he just had an extra little spark about him. And the guy's going to end up with about 200 caps, isn't he? He's just an absolute machine. Just never seems to stop. Even though, as you mentioned, he's not the same player, he's changed his game, I feel like. So he's now more of an out-and-out kind of striker, a goal scorer, rather than maybe in kind of years past he was more of a attacking midfielder who became a striker a lot of the time, dribbling all the way through teams and so on. He's much more of not quite a poacher, and he does more than that, but he's going to be tough to handle for any side in this competition. I do feel sorry for Hungary, given that we're about to talk about the other two teams in our group, and it might be a painful experience for them, unfortunately, this tournament. But do we think Portugal are getting out of this group?
I think
now,
so
yes.
now. Yeah.
Go on,
with that, sorry, mate. With that 3 points, I think they've already got that lead over Germany now, and 3 goals as well. The goal difference might make a difference as well. I think just having that win on the board, and they go into it that 10 minutes at the end with that confidence going into the next game. That I think Germany did. I mean, we'll talk about it shortly, but I think Portugal have that momentum now. They've started well. They've got more momentum than they had throughout the group stage of the last tournament. They went on to win, so we'll see if that makes a difference.
Yeah, that Portugal-Germany game's going to be absolutely massive, isn't it? Because if Germany lose that, they're suddenly in a bit of trouble, really. But like you say, Portugal with the momentum, there are a lot of people's fancies to go really far in this tournament, probably better than they were when they won it squad-wise. So the only issue they've really had was Cancelo dropping out, wasn't it?
They got Nelson Semedo at right back, and he's pretty quick, and he's had an all right season at Wolves. So it's not like they haven't got the players. They got Pereira. Is Pereira injured? I think Pereira maybe is injured actually.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's in the squad, but just looking down the team now, no, it looks like he's not in there. But it's not like they haven't got they haven't got a lot of depth, but they've got a lot of quality players, at least in the first team, that will take them far enough if they don't pick up those injuries.
And then that moves us on to the second game, which I really enjoyed. It was 1-0 going on 3 or 4. France against Germany. In Germany, it always confuses me when they put France as a home side, but the ground they're using is Munich. It just kind of messes the mind a bit. But France look absolutely lethal if they get a lead against you, don't they? Germany didn't play that badly, I didn't think, but just the pace on that French counter is phenomenal. And the goal that get disallowed, because Pogba basically fell over the ball, if he just gets control and passes that's one of the best counter-attacks you're ever going to see.
I was really impressed by France. They, having not seen them a lot since the last World Cup, but Mbappe's grown up an awful lot. The midfield wasn't quite as solid as you'd expect. I mean, it's the first game. Pogba had flashes of greatness, and there were a couple of other moments as well. But I mean, they looked quite dangerous down the wings as well. The ball from Pogba to Hernandez was brilliant, and then across the goal for the own goal was. It was unfortunate that a game that great was kind of decided by a slightly comical own goal. But I think France have kind of set their marker down nicely, and Germany will be competitive, but I think they'll struggle if Portugal turn up and can do what they did yesterday at the end. Like you say, I think other than Gnabry, I don't think there's a huge amount of pace up front there. Maybe Sane.
Yeah, they've put themselves in a difficult position now, Germany. Even though they did only lose 1-0, so goal difference-wise, it's not going to affect them too much. Lose to Portugal, and they suddenly are looking at exiting the tournament regardless of a win against Hungary, because 3 points might not be enough. But what did you make of the game, Si?
Yeah, I thought Germany, the way that they played, they controlled a lot of the ball early on. But whenever they didn't look as threatening as France when France had the ball. France were very good at turning around that ball and getting the attack on and getting it to, Mbappe and making real threatening chances. And Germany couldn't seem to break down the France team when they were going the other way. They were struggling to make those final third passes. The first 10 minutes, there were so many misplaced passes from both teams. Neither of them could seem to get it going. But Germany never seemed to really get in the groove there. And I don't know if having Gnabry up top is going to be a problem, or whether they should be using him further wide, have that pace and the width, and then just using, they're using Kimmich and Gosens fairly wide, and just having Müller and Havertz sat behind. I don't know if they need Timo Werner. I know Werner's not had, but he's quietly been plodding along in the Premier League. I don't know whether they need a more out-and-out goal scorer than Gnabry.
I felt like they were missing a focal point in attack, definitely. Because even when Werner came on, like Werner, when he plays for Germany, I've noticed tends to be more of a guy that kind of goes out to the wings. So like balls will be played out or cleared out to the wings. He's the kind of guy who'll go right out and do the donkey work and get balls in. He's not really a focal point. Like, he's not going to lead the line as such. He's going to drift. At Gnabry's similar. He's not going to stay in central. He's going to drift looking for the ball. So it might be something that we might see them change up, but I just, for all they had some decent possession, second half they looked miles better, I've got to say, when they were actually pressing and putting pressure on the French, not giving them that much respect. I still feel like they're a wee bit lacking up front with, well, just looking at the other options I've got. Kevin Volland came on and didn't look fantastic either. You've got Thomas Muller, Kai Havertz, Leroy Sané. They don't have an out-and-out number 9, do they, really, when you look at their squad?
That's what's been the focal point of great Germany teams over the years. These great goal scorers who you can rely on for Germany to turn up in the right moments in international tournaments. Without that, they're really going to struggle.
Just picking up on a couple of comments in there. So there's Tony Jameson, welcome in, mate. Mbappe did look like he fancied it last night big time. I felt really sorry for him, because see that goal that was disallowed for offside? What a goal. I think I tweeted out that he was robbed and somebody took it the wrong way thinking I was saying he wasn't offside, but just ridiculous. Who else has done something like that moment of quality in this tournament so far? DM thought Hungary looked good yesterday against Portugal. The Hungary-Germany game, I believe, is in Munich. Somebody can correct me though. Yeah. I don't think Hungary's got all 3 games at all.
No, I think Germany have their 3 games at home. So.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Yes,
thanks,
it's
Rich.
at Munich. The last one's at Munich.
Bit of an F1 reference here. Germany a bit like a Pirelli left rear tyre. Don't think either team was impressive last night. I would disagree with that. I think after an initial 15-20 minutes where, as we said, passes were going astray and so on, I think France were very, very impressive for me anyway, because they didn't get out of second gear and they still looked really good. That defensively, they were solid as a rock. Germany had one big chance when Gosens finally got a ball in from the left. But other than that, just Kante was absolutely everywhere as per usual. Pogba's a different player in a France shirt. I don't know what they do to him. He's so much better playing for his country at the minute. And when you get Benzema now up with Mbappe, it's a filthy attack. I don't really know how to combat that. If you're playing against them, I would be full of fear if it was Scotland coming up against France at the minute. But is there a better attack in this tournament? I know Portugal get brought up a lot.
I think as a full, yeah. I mean, Italy have done well. I think France, Mbappe just looks like he's ready to start at any moment. I think that pace he's got, and like you said, that goal that was disallowed, it showed what he can do. And I think if he's kind of got this game out of the way now, he's got the cobwebs off, and it's another game playing with Benzema coming back into the team, and he looked pretty sharp as well.
There's another point that's been brought by DM. The flag went up really late for the offsides to disallow the goals, and apparently that's a deliberate thing that UEFA have done, just to allow the play to go on just in case there isn't an infringement. What do you feel about that? Are you a fan of them waiting that long, or would you rather them just kind of commit to a decision?
I think that's how they're supposed to do it, isn't it? Isn't even that how they're supposed to do it? I don't know what it's like in the Scottish leagues, but certainly the Premier League, they're supposed to wait, and they never do. But
we don't have VAR up here, so that's the beauty of Scottish football.
That's the advantage. I mean, yeah, it goes up late, but it's an advantage because if it is a goal, it is a goal. It makes them play on. And unless it's really obvious, I can't see why it's necessarily an issue.
Yeah, I feel like the Hungary one was really obvious, and they just waited just because it's the home team with a full crowd. But yeah, Rich, I kind of can't approach you there.
No, I think there is an element where they want the game to go through, and then if they go back and check it for VAR after the ball's gone in, and they can see then whether it was offside or not. It is quite strange, especially some of them where you can see that it's offside. Yeah. And then they have to go through the charade of it. The Mbappe one was a little bit more in real time. It was a little bit more uncertain, but it was it's a little bit strange to watch. But I guess in the grand scheme of things, at least if they let the play go through, then you never know.
I'm just upset that Mbappe's goal didn't stand. That's all it is.
Well, if he'd have flagged it, we'd have never got to see the goal. At
that's
least,
true.
So at least we get to see
the skill in the end. Yeah. But getting into today's games, and thankfully we do have another 2 p.m. slot game, so I apologise in advance to my work yet again, but Finland-Russia is our 2 o'clock game, and Rich, as a man who has watched every Finland game for 10 years, the first thing I was wanting to ask you actually was, in terms of reaction to the initial win, has it been muted because of what happened around the Finland-Denmark game?
Yeah, very much. I think everyone saw it as this, in any other environment, it would have been this historic thing that would have been celebrated without any restriction. But everyone's kind of taking it, acknowledging we won and enjoying it and everything else. But, it'll always be, and rightly, sort of seen as the game where Eriksson had his incident, and thankfully he's okay. And it's difficult. It's literally like, we tried talking about it after the game, and it's difficult because it is literally like 2 different matches before and after, and the morals around whether it should or should not have been played. Obviously, on paper, people will look back and see Finland won, but it wasn't that straightforward. But I think now this is the game today, the Russia game, where people before the tournament saw Finland possibly getting a result, and now that Eriksson's well, we can put that somewhat behind us and look forward to thinking like, this day, I think it was on this day 4 years ago, Finland were 107th or 108th in the FIFA rankings, and today they can be the first team to guarantee qualification for the next round at the Euros. So there's a lot of positive vibes around it, and obviously being Russia, it's the Finnish version of the old enemy. So yeah.
And the other thing that I'm looking forward to in this game is, I think the Russian manager is the most kind of out there manager in this competition. He's substituting substitutes. He's playing Yuri Zhirkov in defence, who played 70 minutes of football all season. He just seems to kind of play by his own rule book, which I'm quite enjoying as well. That you don't really know what you're going to get from Russia. So I quite fancy Finland. Are you feeling confident about them?
Yeah, confident. I think this is a completely new position we're in. Finland have only ever beaten Russia or the Soviet Union once, and that was in 1912. So people are kind of, obviously confident, and even a draw will probably be enough in the grand scheme of things. And Russia weren't particularly good against Belgium, but again, for them, this is a game that they'll look at thinking they need 3 points from as well. So yes, be tough.
This is where these second slates of games are really interesting, because there's so many that you look at that teams that lost the first game need now to get a result, and it should hopefully raise the stakes a wee bit. We'll see how it impacts things if we're going to get more kind of goals and so on. But what are your thoughts going into this one, Are you looking forward to Finland Russia?
I can't say it's high on my list of matchups. Sorry, Rich, it's not high on the list of matchups. Although you never know, because sometimes these games are the ones which come alive, and then you get a great performance. Neither team has reason to be particularly defensive in this. Actually, Russia certainly don't. So we could see a tournament. We could see a match on here. The first game, sometimes you can see these kind of teams. They might be a little bit hesitant, just try and get a point on the board, because especially with this tournament, you can go through with very little. I think even 3 points might be enough to go through with some of those third places, depending on if you get too many draws in a group. You're going to see some teams would go through on 3 points or even 2 points if it really came down to it. Probably the 2 point teams will be the ones that go out. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. This Russia team doesn't look great. I think it's probably one of the worst Russia teams we've seen for a long time.
They're so reliant on Juba up front. I feel like that he's not exactly the hardest man to mark. Put it that way. He'll rough you up and he'll bully you if he can get up to the penalty box, but if they're in transition, you can keep an eye on him pretty easy. You know where he's going to go. The thing with Finland that's it'll be interesting to see is if they play that defensively again. I don't think they will. I think they'll be a bit more ambitious, because if you're sitting that deep with a guy like Juba up against you, all Russia need to do is just pepper the box with balls, and eventually he's going to win a knockdown, he's going to win a header that is going to be a decent attempt on goal. So I don't think you can play a low block the same way against Russia. You probably need to play a wee bit higher up the pitch.
I mean, the thing is with Finland's lineup on Saturday was probably slightly more attacking than they've been playing in the last sort of 6 or 7 months. They actually had 2 centre forwards and an attacking midfielder. So again, I can't see them changing it today. In the qualifying, they played 4-4-2 and were a little bit more easy going forward. Now it's all about the wing backs. And if Russia have to come out they have to try and win, so that leaves a bit of space in behind. And over the last couple of years, Pukki's done so well. Obviously, a lot of your listeners would have seen him at Celtic, and he's a completely different player since then. So he's got so much more confidence and experience behind him now. And then for the other lot of your listeners who've seen a lot of Glenn Kamara, he's come in and he's become the most sort of important creative player in the team. His role in the goal on Saturday was crucial. And I think, again, if there's a little bit of space there or a little bit of something that he can take forward, then there's enough attacking threat there. And the Finland centre halves do like a bit of a ruck. So if things get physical, they should get their foot in.
I've got a question here for you, Rich, from Don in the chat. So he's saying, can you ask what's the Finnish opinion of Glenn Kamara? I think you've touched on it there, that he's the main creative outlet, but how's he thought of in Finland?
I think from when he was sort of breaking into the underage teams, people saw him as potentially this big hope. He'd been discarded by Arsenal, and I think needed to play men's football to really see his potential. But what he's done, made his debut 3.5 years ago. In qualifying, the partnership with him and Tim Sparv was such an important thing for the team to get them moving and to get the ball forward. And in that last sort of 18 months since the qualification, he's done that much better. He's won a league in Scotland. He's matured. He's a lot better going forward as well. assuming that after the World Cup qualifying cycle is over and we start seeing players retiring from international football, he'll certainly step up as probably the most important.
Yeah, he's had a cracking season. It's probably the best kind of monetary signing Rangers have ever made. It was something like £50,000 he paid for him, and likelihood is if he has a good tournament here, he'll probably get sold for. We're talking 5 million plus. He'll probably go up towards 10. So, I really like watching him. I think he's a great, really tidy midfielder as well. Just dead intelligent. It's a bit of a throwback that he's really good in possession, but as you see, he's getting better and better going forward as well. So he's definitely adding to his game. But yeah, we'll move on then to Turkey Wales, the middle game, and again, this is one that both teams need to target as a win. I would say that Wales coming off not being that great in the first game and stealing a draw. Turkey obviously get humbled, I think is probably the right word to use, against Italy, but they didn't really attack at all. They almost surrendered in a way that they showed no attacking ambition, and Italy went, thank you very much. So how do we see this one going? I'll come to you, Si, first, given that obviously you'd have watched the Italy-Turkey game.
Yeah, sure. Turkey didn't look great. They had something like 35% of the possession, which was looking pretty bad up until that Spain-Sweden game the other day. I think, what did Spain have? 85% of the possession?
85%, it was at one point, yeah.
But Sweden created chances. I don't know how many chances. I think Turkey, Donnarumma didn't make a save, or if he did, it was like a really easy save. I think he intercepted a cross, and that was about it. So I can't imagine. I mean, they're gonna get more chances against Greece for sure. Wales. They're gonna get more chances against. I've got Greece on my mind. Greece aren't even in this tournament. Do you know? I was trying to think last night. There was a game. I don't know when it was. Maybe 8 or 9 years ago. It must have been an international tournament. So I was trying to look up when. I couldn't find it. But there was a game where Turkey just sat back. I'm sure it was Turkey. And I was trying to think. In my head, it's Turkey-Greece, and they just played between the back four for an hour. And I was thinking Turkey could do that, but now they can't. Now they've got to push on against a team like Wales. They could get caught out.
I think it might have been Turkey-Greece. That does ring a bell. It was just two teams only needed a draw or whatever.
Yeah, it was the most boring game of football I've ever seen. No one wanted to attack that back four, and they were happy to just let each other pass to each other. It might have been the time that Turkey went on to get through to third place or whatever they did. This certainly isn't that Turkey team. They're not great. I don't know whether Wales can nick a win here. I think Wales probably want a win. I don't know if a draw is going to be enough to put them through, coming off that first game with a draw. Switzerland's a much better team for them to come up against, though. If you can get someone like Bale on a good day, I think he could cause problems for Turkey. Of course, Aaron Ramsey is very creative. They got some good wing backs with speed in their wing backs. So,
yeah, I think both sides need a win, because looking ahead, Wales aren't going to fancy getting anything off Italy. Turkey, Switzerland, I don't think you can guarantee Turkey are getting anything there either. So this potentially, even though I think a lot of people will overlook this game, I think could be one of the more exciting, given that there's so much at stake, and it's the chance to actually see Yilmaz get a bit of attacking joy for Turkey, because he looked pretty decent when he got a chance to get on the ball, but it was very rare that he did in that Italy game. The guy's scoring for fun this season, so we'll see if the Wales backline can cope with him. But on the flip side, I'd really like to look at a big Kiefer Moore for Wales. We built it a couple of days ago as a kind of return of the target man this tournament, and he's very much in that mould. So how do you see this one going, Rich?
Again, Kiefer Moore's someone who I hadn't paid any attention to until about a year ago, and he scored a very similar goal against Finland to the one he did against Switzerland at the weekend. I'd put Turkey as the slight favourites if you give them sort of, I guess you call it half a home advantage, and it's difficult because Italy was so impressive on Friday. It's difficult to judge Turkey too much in terms of what they were doing going forwards, and I think Wales will need to get Bale, Ramsey on the ball. That they'll need to show enough attacking intent, because they don't have the quality of Italy last week. But it'll be interesting, because Turkey really will have a point to prove, because a lot of people tip them as a dark horse to get to potentially even the semi-finals last week, and they did get shown up very seriously. So I think they'll come out and they'll have to have that intent as well. I think that might be Wales's best chance if Turkey come at them and they get them on the break. But yeah, Kiefer Moore's someone who's, like you say, he is that throwback. He is like the sort of player of the 80s and 90s. But if he gets a decent cross or on the end of a corner, he might get him a goal.
It was like everything, even down to the bloodstained bandage on his head, was the throwback to the old school target man, wasn't it? But yeah, I quite fancy Turkey here. Despite that first game, I think we just need to give credit for Italy being really good, because there's not many teams that have came out and played that well in the first game. You can maybe put France up there, but Italy have definitely looked one of the most fluid teams I think we've seen, because even with France looking good last night, there were still misplaced passes here and there. There's very few misplaced passes from the Italians. It's probably the most complete performance we've seen at the first slate of games. I'm willing to give Turkey another chance, is what I'm trying to say in a long-winded way, but Bale's not the same player, is he? Sorry, He's not got the same pace that he used to. And, like, don't get me wrong, he's still really important to Wales, but I feel like he's not got the same kind of verve about him as he did the last time that Wales won a major tournament.
Sure, I mean, he does tend to turn up for Wales more often than he turns up on the golf course, maybe. But I think he's come off the back of a Spurs season that's been very much ups and downs. He did have a little flurry of playing really well. As soon as I took him out my fantasy team, he had a little flurry of doing really well, and that was towards the tail end of the season, just after they switched managers. I don't remember. It was around the time that Mourinho left. So I wonder if he's got a bit of renewed fire, or like you said, if he's just like winding down his career at this phase. I mean, there's been lots of suggestions as to whether he's even retiring from football this summer. I don't think his future's been decided yet, and that's got
there's been a few whispers, haven't there? Although I think the kind of the understanding is that he might stay on for one more tournament if Wales can get to a World Cup. And that, I think, brings us nicely into the final game for today. We've got Italy facing Switzerland, and what could be a sneakily good game, that one, I reckon. Switzerland are very, very solid in defence. And Briel and Bolo going forward, they've got a real threat who's pacey, powerful, can give that Italian defence a bit of something to think about, because as good as they were, Chiellini and Bonucci, they're not the quickest. So if they can get Bolo running at them, who knows, they might be able to squeeze a goal out. I'm really looking forward to that one. I think that'll be a cracking game.
Yeah, I think it's like you said, Bonucci and Chiellini, the advantage of them is that they play together at Juventus. There's some discussion before the tournament as to whether those two would play, or whether Cherby or who was the other one who was going to come in? Bastoni, right? So Bastoni's had a very good season at Inter. Cherby's at Lazio. Cherby's actually pretty old as well, and he's 33. But Bastoni's very young, 22, and he's become very focal in that Inter team. But Chiellini and Bonucci, I think the way that they read the game allows them to avoid a lot of those issues that they have with balls coming over the top. And they also bring in if Jorginho, for example, who's a key playmaker at the back of that forward, like let's say the midfield and the attackers, he's sitting at the back and creating the play. If he gets marked out of the game, you have Chiellini and Bonucci who can start to play as those playmakers right from the very back of the team, because they can play a pass. They're not no nonsense centre backs. They can put a good ball up to out wide or up to the forwards. But like you said, if they get caught out with a bit of pace on a run, I don't know if they'll get caught out with a long ball, because like I said, they're very good at anticipating the play. But if they get caught out with a run, they could be in trouble.
Don't worry, Rich, is all good. Just saw you try shush there.
Oh no! My 3-year-old wanted to add her opinion to things as well. But,
right, get them started, John.
Her finish is about the same as mine, but I think Switzerland should give Italy more of a test. But Italy certainly defensively didn't really get out of second gear on Friday. But I'd be interested to see how if a team goes and runs at them like you said with Mbola with a bit of pace, and if they're, I mean, again, this is Shaqiri who has barely played a club match for 2-3 years, and yet gets in the first team in Switzerland every time, and he's obviously there for a reason. That whether it is like the Gareth Bale, he can do something in a Switzerland shirt that he doesn't get the chance to. I think as one of the chat people said, I think there's not going to be a lot of goals in the games today, but I think if we see Switzerland, if they turn up with an intent, because they've only got 1 point and they'll have seen this as the tough one with Turkey left, but I mean they'll want at least a point from that game just to give themselves something to go into the last round.
Yeah, I think Switzerland's big issue, and we mentioned this previously, is that they've got a lack of creative players, and that's why they're so reliant on Shaqiri, because he's just the one player that they've got other than Mbolo that you think, what's he going to do next? They can produce a moment of magic out of nowhere that nobody's expecting, and that's what you need against teams like Italy that are going to be the favourites in this one. But you're not really relying on Granit Xhaka to come up with a moment of magic, is what I'd say in the kindest possible terms. He looked a bit off the pace, which isn't surprising. A lot of the Swiss team didn't play first team football this season. There was a lot of them that were kind of riding the bench for their club sides, so they might come into it fresh because of that, but they might be off the pace. Is the thing that I'd be worried about with them. And we'll see how they cope after that first game. At times it looked really good against Wales, at times it just fell apart. Kind of losing the ball dead easy in simple situations. So, like, I take it you'd be siding with Italy here, Si.
Yeah, I think so. It'd be interesting. I don't know if he's fit, but Verratti is a very key player for Italy. He wasn't in that first game, so Verratti. It'd be interesting to see if he is fit. I mean, obviously he's not fit. They're not going to start him. But if he's fit, when and if they bring him into the team, because he's a key player for Italy. Very good off the ball. He'd probably come in for Locatelli. But if they're playing well, I can't see any reason why they would want to shake things up necessarily. Spinazzola down the left looks very good. I mean, there was a little bit of discussion as to whether Emerson would play, but Emerson hasn't played this season. And you're talking about it, Swiss players who haven't played all season. Emerson, I think he's just played in the Champions. He's had 2 Premier League games all season for Chelsea. He's got tough competition in Chilwell and Marcus Alonso. But it's strange that he gets the call up on the back of two games all season. And then, but I feel like they've got options in depth in the Italy team. You know, you got Immobile, Insigne, but you can bring it on Chiesa if you really need it, or you can bring on Belotti if you really need it. And nearly every position, you know, the defense aren't working, you bring on the other 2 defenders. I think right back they had an injury, so that could be an issue. Di Lorenzo's okay. So I mean, those wing backs might be issues if they start picking up some injuries there. But certainly the Italy team has to be the favourite there.
Yeah, I am. Firstly, joke. Hello to the firstborn. I was really impressed with Spinazzola. He's not a guy that I've seen very much of, in all honesty, but he was really effective, kind of cutting inside from that flank, wasn't he? And most Italy's attacking play seemed to go down that side as well, so he was getting plenty of the ball, but I don't see them risking Verratti here because they got the win the first game. I'd imagine the Italians will fancy their chances against Wales in the final game as well. I can't see them risking him. Unlike other teams that might be forced to risk guys that might not be fully fit, they can take it easy with Verratti, given that you've said that obviously he's so important to the team overall.
The advantage of the format this time around is at this point you can start going, well, what route to the final do we want? And there's risks with that. I know 3 points might not be enough. If you've got 3 points and 3 goals, you're probably in a good position. But let's say they lose to Switzerland today 3-0. It's unlikely, but it could happen, right? And then suddenly it becomes a different issue. So they're not gonna want to lose today, but a draw would be enough to put them through. And then they might be thinking, well, do we want to finish first, second, third in the group, and get a favourable opponent or a favourable route further into the competition, or do we want to rest some, because that might be the option to rest some players or bring some other players in and test some other things out with the team.
I'd love to be in that position, but obviously, things conspired against us, shall we say. But that's today's slate of games. So basically, it's open season now, folks. If you want to talk about the tournament so far, fire away in the chat. I've seen something there from Ken. The analyst going on about Italy's amazing switch from a back four to a back three during the game. It was just the centre back covering over. There's been a mixed reception to certain pundits, commentators, and analysts I've noticed so far, but I really enjoyed listening to Emma Kirby the other night. I also thought, sorry, not Emma Kirby. I've combined two of them now. What's
Emma
the name
Hayes.
of Emma Hayes? That's what I was trying to say. Thanks. I thought she was really insightful. Alan McCoist I've enjoyed for totally different reasons, because it's just like having your dad watching the football with you. But I think on the whole, other than the constant Euro 96 Gaza plays of his goal the other night, I think it's been pretty decent so far, the coverage.
Yeah, it's been nice. I mean, I'm normally a BBC fan, but I think ITV have got a much better selection this time round. Like someone said the other day that McCoist is a breath of fresh air because he sounds like he's enjoying it. He's there because he wants to be. I think the BBC in particular are guilty of having the co-commentators being sort of former players who sound like they don't want to be there. They're kind of pretending to be Lawrenson. I think Danny Murphy's the worst of it. I mean, during the Spain and Sweden game the other night, it just sounded like he'd rather be anywhere else. And it's like, that's a dream for a lot of people to watch these games. And it sounds like as well that they haven't done a huge amount of research either. So, I mean, you can't expect everyone to know everything about every player, but he seems constantly either annoyed or surprised. And it's a difficult kind of, that's not really what you want. Whereas, let's say if Emma Hayes comes in and talks, she's a very successful manager and she knows what she's talking about. And if she can add that sort of layer to commentary, then all for it.
Yeah, at least Danny Murphy has two emotions. Jermaine Genius has no emotion whatsoever. When he's on co-coms, he'd rather be on the one show couch at this point. But I think you can see people responding to either a little bit of insight that Emma gave us, or McCoist and Tilsley clearly like each other as well. I think that helps. They're not quite the same as when he was paired up with John Champion. I think that was the best we've had for ages. But again, it kind of comes back to, we talk about players working together. McCoist and Tilsley have worked together this season as commentary teams for Rangers TV. So maybe there's a bit of that as well. They're both comfortable with each other, which helps. Someone else here is asking Scotland's chances for Friday. So we're inevitably going to end up talking Scotland-England here.
There were a few questions. There's been a few sneaking in. I've seen them.
Yeah, I've been trying to not talk about Scotland instantly the whole way, but I, in a bizarre way, am slightly confident that we'll do well against England. I'm not convinced we'll win. Not convinced we'll get a draw. I think we'll acquit ourselves much better than we did the first game, though, because I think Clark's learned lessons. It was a harsh lesson, the way we lost 2-0, that we didn't really deserve to lose 2-0, I don't think, in the balance of play, and we actually did some really good things in that game, but we didn't take our chances. And the Czechs get 2 chances and took them both. So it'll be a different game against England. It might suit us better to sit in a bit more and not have to be the aggressor as such to try and find goals. I wouldn't put it past us to get a draw in that game. That's what I'll say. And I'm sorry if I've totally jinxed us to a 3 or 4-0 loss after that. So, what do we reckon, gents? How he's looking ahead to that game on Friday?
I could see a draw. I think both teams. I don't know if both teams would be happy with the draw. I don't know. I guess Scotland would be happy with the draw. I don't know if you're looking now where you're going to get your points. I think Czech Republic was the place where you're probably looking to get your points pre-tournament. And a draw does mean you have to go into that final game hoping for a win against Croatia, but you never know what could happen to Croatia in the meantime. So, they could be through, or they could be out themselves.
We need to hope that Croatia don't beat the Czechs, and it makes it so much easier for us. and like you don't need to worry about goal difference and swings and all that kind of thing. But I think the saving grace is Croatia did not look good against England. As talented as they are as a team, I think there's a bit of a blueprint there on how to play against them. But without getting too far into the future, we need to play England first. How do you see the game going, Rich?
It'd be interesting because I think Monday's game, it was difficult for Steve Clarke. I think it almost looked like he wasn't sure whether Scotland should be the favourites or not. And I think because they saw Czech Republic as, on paper anyway, the weakest team in the group, I think going to England at Wembley, obviously got everything that goes on along with that, but at least they kind of know England are going to be the dominant team at home. He'll know a bit more to set up, and also he'll have learned from how the players played on Monday which ones, is he going to change anything? Did his selections really work? And arguably not. I think Scotland had a couple of good chances, and in the first half, I think before the first goal anyway, they looked quite threatening on the break, and obviously the second goal really finished them off. But I think if he can set up properly, and it's going to be easier, he knows how England are going to play. I think at least they'll have a much more strong idea of how the game's going to go.
Yeah. That question there from Joke, I think O'Donnell still plays on Friday against most fan wishes, it seems like, but it's a different kind of game. We're not relying on him in attack against England. He looked uncomfortable getting forward because he's a defender. He's not your Patterson, he's not a Forrest. The one that he miscontrolled on the right wing, when it would have been easier to just put his foot in the ball, kind of summed it up. He's just not that comfortable going forward. So I think in a bizarre way it might actually suit him playing England. But yeah, I know it sounds ridiculous to say, but I think I'd be quite happy going into that final game with Croatia knowing it's win or bust. And if we get a draw against England, we'll know that we get through with a win. 4 points gets you through, pretty much full stop. 3 points can still do it with goal difference, but that second goal might be a painful one that we conceded to the Czechs in that side of things. But even though it's Croatia, if it's a one-off game that can get us through if we win it, I think we'd have taken that pre-tournament. Otherwise, we might be going home with 0 points in the end. Let's hope we get something. Anyway, as Barton was saying there, like Scotland to go through, just can't see where the points come from. I think a draw against England would be a massive boost, but more than that, we need to put a performance in against England, and yeah, well, we'll see where it goes. Do you think England will change anything, Si, from their game against Croatia?
Yeah, I have to wonder whether they bring in one or two of the players whose fitness is on edge. I don't think this is as much of a must. In tournament football, most games you'd say must win, but I think they could get away with a draw here and go through. It might be if we're winning, they'll probably bring on maybe a couple of players. I don't know if we'll start with. It looks all right with the left back. A lot of people criticised it before the game, but the Tierney at left, not Tierney at left back. Tierney, you've got Tierney Scottish. Trippier at left back. It's because I was thinking, is Tierney going to play on Friday? Do you think? I was going to ask that question. But
I think he will, because he trained yesterday. Light training right enough, but it feels like Clark deliberately didn't play him because he didn't want to risk anything, rather than because he wasn't fit. I think now that this England game is so important, he has to start regardless. And if he comes off, he comes off. It is what it is. But you could tell we missed him, because somebody else there will be Dan. I think Che Adams will start as well. So it'll be a bit more of a mobile Scotland team. But anyone that watched Scotland for the first time in a while would have seen how static we were going forward. There was just no real movement. And Tierney's what gives us the movement in the formation that we play, because kind of like the old Sheffield United style, that he's a centre-back that bombs forward. And it just creates all sorts of chaos, because teams don't know how to deal with that. It's like, do you pass it to a midfielder, then to a defender, but they've got a man already in their system, and it just creates mismatches. So that's what we need. We need Tierney badly. Barton saying Chilwell, Sancho and Grealish he thinks will start. I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of fearful of Grealish.
I think Grealish should start. Grealish should start. This is his kind of game, I feel. We're going to sit in deep a bit more than Croatia did, I think.
So it does ask for a creative player that's going to unlock us. And Grealish is pretty much that man in the England team, isn't it? I'll be delighted if it comes out that Sterling and Rashford are starting on the wings and we are sitting deep, because their game isn't really that. Their game's getting in behind. Or if they've got space to work in, just creating chaos. I think we'll go really tight marking and quite deep and hitting the counter. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
How do you feel about Sterling on that right side, though? Do you not feel like the right side of Scotland is the right side of defence of Scotland could be an area that could be exploited by a player like Sterling?
Definitely, but any player can exploit it. It's our weakness. Anyone that England play there can get joy if they play well. I think that's the easiest way to sum up, because Stephen O'Donnell plays for Motherwell for a reason. He's not a elite international quality right back. He's filled in and he's done a job for us there over the past year or so, but we're waiting on Nathan Patterson to develop and take that slot as it stands. It's the one position I need that we really badly need to get sorted in the next few years, I think. Robertson and Tierney against Walker, on the other hand, might give us a bit of joy down that flank. I'd agree with that. Robertson, I thought, played really well against the Czechs. If he scores that goal, it's a different game as well. The one that he put straight down the keeper's throat. But I think we'll move on from Scotland England before I get too depressed about thinking about what might happen on it. Now that we've had the first slate of games through, who's really impressed you? That's where we'll go next.
I think, it was the opening game. Italy were a lot more attacking and a lot more sort of complete than I think a lot of people thought. People are so used to Italy having, one of the pundits mentioned these star players who sometimes tend to slow it down a little bit. But those combinations they had up front worked really well as a team. Admittedly, Turkey weren't very good, and you have to see them against a stronger side, but they were really impressive. Belgium, again, I think going forward against, again, another poor side. But I'd be interested to see how France, if they can turn it on and get, if everything clicks in midfield, and I think they're the ones with the most potential. I think they're the ones who've got the most to improve, and they started pretty well. But I think if they can get things going, if Pogba can play rather than in the moments, but for most of the game, then I think they're the ones who look like they'll grow the most.
And then same with you, Si, who's really impressed you?
Yeah, I have to agree on Belgium. I mean, Italy we've spoken about quite a bit already, and I've said they've a weak Turkey team. I don't know. We'll see after today. I mean, this is going to be a good comparison point for those first set of games. Same with Belgium. Is that a weak Russia team, like we suggested, or is it just that Belgium are a machine with the likes of Lukaku? And then France, Germany. Those two have come up against good opposition in each other. So I think France did very well yesterday, and that could. They've got Portugal, the final game, right? And they could just rest players against Portugal. Maybe it won't matter. And that they've got that opposite problem to what England's got, in that England finished top of their group. They face second in that final group. So teams in that final group might not want to be. I don't know. Maybe I'm cursing England before we get there. But maybe teams don't want to be facing England. They'd rather be facing a Croatia or a Czech Republic or Scotland.
We'll revisit that opinion on Saturday morning after Scotland get a jammy 1-0 win.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But I think, kind of looking outside the box, I think the two kind of weird countries that have really impressed me, I really like to look at Slovakia. I think they played Poland really well. And unlike kind of the way Sweden played Spain, that a lot of people get turned off by, Slovakia were still defensive, but they were lethal on the break, and I think that just gave Poland a lot more to think about. Mac looked phenomenal, so did Duda. They might be a wee bit of a dark horse to go quite well into the knockouts. I think they'll probably get through the knockouts now. I liked North Macedonia as well, purely for when you look at the likes of Finland, North Macedonia, these countries that are coming in for the first time to a major tournament. North Macedonia are a bit of a throwback in that they've got a goalkeeper who's just, you'd never know what he's going to do next. He's one of those wee, really agile guys who it's just exciting to watch for the wrong reasons as well as the right reasons. And they've got a couple of great playmakers in Bardi and Elmas, and they didn't defend. They just played their own game, which I've got all the time in the world for. It's that kind of, they don't expect to go through, so they're just going to do what they do. And I really enjoyed watching that. But I think they might tighten up slightly if they get a chance to go through, is the only thing. And they've got Ukraine up next, which is probably must win for North Macedonia. In terms of the flip side, teams that haven't impressed, I don't think we can look at Denmark because of the circumstances. That game is not fair to judge them, given that they played really well in the first half against Finland up to the point where Eriksson collapsed. I guess the one that jumps out is Poland, given they've got Spain up next. They might be going back home pretty soon. Who wants to jump in with their thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, Spain, it's kind of how, when we're so used to seeing Spain of sort of 2008, 2010, when they played a similar style of football, but they had a cutting edge. They had a David Villa, they had David Silva, they had Torres, they had these players who could make a difference, whereas this team is set up, it looks, I mean, to the layman, it looks like they play the same way, but they don't have that class of player up front, and there's a lot of indecisiveness around who's going to play. It just seems that, I don't know, they're flattering to deceive. I mean, Sweden were poor, and yet Sweden arguably had one of the best chances of the games. Isak looked threatening, and again, if Poland have point to prove, and as you say, Slovakia showed how to play against Poland. Don't go in with any fear of. A lot of people see Poland as a one-man team. Slovakia just said, no, we're going to play our game. They were defensive, but they were really, really impressive. And I think if Poland against Spain, one team has no points, one team has 1 point. Both teams will need to win, and that hopefully will open things up a little bit more for both. Although Spain arguably have the better quality in midfield, at least.
Yeah, it's a game that neither side are going to draw, because that puts all the pressure onto the final group game. Both sides need 3 points there, so that might be one to keep an eye on. The final game on Saturday. That is the nighttime game. Anyone else side that you've been let down by so far?
Other than that team in Group D that we've already spoken about, in Group C, I think the Netherlands started strongly, and then they nearly lost out to Ukraine. Like they let Ukraine back into the game. I think it went back to 2-2 and then it went 3-2 right at the end with the Dumfries goal. So I'm interested to see where the Netherlands go, because they should be fairly strong in defence. They're missing Virgil van Dijk, but they've got De Ligt, they got De Vrij, they got some good players there and in front of them as well. So I don't know. They got Nathan Ake. Actually, they played Nathan Ake, didn't they? So they got Nathan Ake.
Came off the bench. Ake.
He came off the bench. That was it. Yeah. So it's not like they haven't got the quality players there. These are players who play at top level clubs in top leagues, and I think to be 2-0 up and then to get pegged back to 2-2 from what doesn't look like a strong Ukraine team, although I think they played quite well. Ukraine to come back into that game. But on paper, that doesn't look like the strongest Ukraine team ever. There's no Shevchenko or anyone in that team. It'll be interesting to see how they do against the other team. Okay, they got Austria and North Macedonia, so maybe they don't need to worry so much. That's the hardest game out the way, I would perhaps argue. Or certainly the hardest in terms of skill level of the opposition, maybe not in terms of physicality. So, yeah, I think the Netherlands will have a point to prove as well.
Yeah, I must admit, I wasn't that shocked by the Netherlands letting Ukraine back in, because that tends to be what they do. At the moment, that they really weren't impressive against Scotland in the pre-tournament friendly. Really not. Depay just dragged them to a draw. Ultimately, we should have beat them 2-1, and you saw how we played the first game. So I don't see them doing much in this competition, even if they do get through. Maybe kind of quarter-finalists at best. They're just too vulnerable. I feel like a better side will show them up for their deficiencies, and Ukraine weren't able to do that. But I mean, they've got Austria up next. Austria looked pretty good, I've got to say. They might be the kind of team that will show up the Dutch, because the quality Austria's let their set up play. Sabitzer's ball for their first goal, Alaba's cross for the second goal was phenomenal in their first game. So maybe I'll be dark horse here to do well Austria. And as much as I gave them a bit of flack pre-tournament, because my predictions have been great for this. But that, gents, brings us to 10 o'clock. That is the end of your time. So thank you very much for both of you for jumping on. Really appreciate it. Do you want to say to people where they can find you on Twitter and otherwise before we finish up?
So I'm at Escape to Swarmy on Twitter, and got a podcast called The Finnish Football Show. So it's 4 Brits with Finnish wives talking about Finnish football. It's not as bad as it sounds, honest.
No, I've started listening now that we've had you on, Rich. I've quite enjoyed the couple I had a wee listen to just try and get an impression. And then yourself, Si?
Yeah, you can find me, actually it's here, I don't know if I pointed it there we go. That's my Twitch name. There's no space in there, but on Twitter I think it's got an FM at the end, Simaggio FM, and it might do on YouTube or something as well, but just Simaggio on Twitch.
And with that, I just remain to say thank you very much again for jumping in, folks. Sorry to Mono Drops, who just jumped in from Spain.
Spain's another team that's been weak. And they couldn't break down that Sweden team, so they've got to push on as well. There we go.
We'll see how they do against Poland. That's a big game now. But thanks again for joining us, folks. Enjoy the games today. We'll be back tomorrow as per normal to run through them, and we'll catch you then. See you later.